Welcome. I'm so happy that y'all are joining. So this is my figure model drawing session. This is a tutorial. It's going to last about 20 minutes or so, not too long, but what I wanted to do for y'all tonight is give you an opportunity to draw the figure. So this figure is, it's obviously not me, it's taken from livemodelbooks.com from PoseSpace. So if you don't, here's what you should have before we get started. First of all, I'm Haley B. I'm glad that y'all are here. The hashtag is Haley from home. And I have about 3 pieces of paper ready to go. I also have a whole nother stack, about 20 pieces. You might not use all 20, but you might use a few. Make sure that you have the figure downloaded onto an iPad, or if you have another phone, or even on your laptop. If you have time to print, maybe you print the figure, but try to have the figure in some way next to you for when you're drawing. So if you're drawing on a flat surface, can you bring the figure? And the figure can be found on my website, haleybowen.net/exhibitions. So it's the first link. It says click here for the reference photo. I chose a figure that had a really interesting composition, and what I like most about this figure is the shapes and the negative space. And if y'all like how I draw in those bones, I know a lot of y'all like the butterfly part, that the pelvis that looks like the butterfly. I thought that'd be fun to kind of add that in there. So before we actually get started, does anybody have any questions from last time? I know we did the blind contour drawing, and what I liked about blind contour was that it helped you get really loose. So I'm going to give you a fun exercise to do in the first part of this. I'm going to see if y'all have any photos, but I see Genuine You. You're so cute. Genuine You, Jen Lee is one of my best friends, and she is going to model for me, and I'm so excited soon after the quarantine. So yeah, I hope y'all are staying home and staying safe. But if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask. My mom joined. Thanks, Mom. But make sure you have those supplies collected, that you have the figure on your screen, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm so excited too. I'm really excited. If you have a glass of wine, I like to draw from home with a glass of wine. I don't draw from my studio with a glass of wine, but we're at home, so it's a little cozier. And if you feel like you need to, loosen up a little bit, maybe you have a glass of wine. So, okay, with the reference photo that you have, I want y'all to go ahead and just draw what you see. This is on a scrap piece of paper. I want you to, for 1 minute, draw the figure. I know it's crazy. We're diving right in. We don't have a lot of time, but I want you to take 1 minute of drawing what you see. So it's 7:02. At 7:03, I'm going to tell you time, and that's going to be it. So within this 1 minute, so we'll start at 7:03. How's that? I'll give you guys some space. Within this 1 minute, I want you to draw the figure on a piece of paper. So go ahead and go. 1 minute. Just draw what you see, and I'm going to start the timer. So we have 1 minute. I'm not going to do it because I already know how to do what I'm showing you. And there's Jean-Pierre, the infamous Jean-Pierre. All right, so we're about 10 seconds in. Just draw what you see. I know it's intimidating, but you have to start somewhere. Draw what you see. I'm trying not to give you a lot of tips and guidelines here. But we have about 40 seconds left. Try to get everything you can. Draw what you see. Figure on a piece of paper. Don't give up. Don't be scared. She's a really beautiful model. I've used her before. Draw what you see. About 30 seconds left. Just try to get as much down as you can. Think about the fingers. Think about the feet. Okay, I'm going to stop trying to give you guys information because, okay, we have about 15 seconds left. Yes, there's a little pressure. There's a lot of pressure. You have 10 seconds left. Try to draw what you see. 5, 4, try to get it all down. 3, 2, 1. Here, baby, Instagram. Okay, so from what you just drew, I want you to think about a few things. Think about how you held the pencil. So whenever I'm drawing, I'm just going to show you my notebook. Whenever I first started drawing the figure, and this is maybe what y'all look like, I drew like this. Okay? I held the pencil like we all learned when we started writing. If you had the cool pencil grip, we had to do it this way. And I drew very close, and I didn't really look at the reference photo, which is why when I did the blind contour the other night, you had to look at the reference. So think about that. Think about your marks. Were they hard? Were they hard lines? Can you see, if you flip the paper, the indent from the pencil? Did you do a lot of scratchy marks? Did you do a lot of this stuff? So think about your rhythm, think about your marks, think about the quality of the line, and think about your focus. Were you looking more at the figure, or were you looking more at the artwork itself? All right, put that piece of paper to the side. I'm gonna change your life. That's what I told Michael when I said I do about 2 years ago. So, so I'm gonna change your life. I hope so. All right, babe, so let's scan to the, let's pan to the actual piece of paper. So here we have this beautiful figure. What I wanna talk about tonight is the composition. So all of y'all, go ahead and take your hands like a frame, okay? And I want you to frame the picture and see, does she fit better in a rectangle that's vertical, or does she fit better in a rectangle that's horizontal? And when I mean fit better, I mean how much space does she take up? So if you've already figured it out, you might have realized that she fits best in a vertical piece of paper. So portrait mode as compared to landscape mode. So that's the orientation of the paper that we're going to start drawing on tonight. Number one, think about negative space. So if you were to cross this figure into 4 quadrants, there's so much negative space on the left and right sides of her body. She is exactly in the middle of the page, which is why I like this so much. It's so well composed. Someone talked about sacred geometry. That's going to be a different workshop, but there's a lot of beautiful movement within this posture with her fingers and her toes. So I also want to talk about shapes because that's going to help you get down some of these details. The whole human body is really just shapes. So let me show you how I would map out this figure on a piece of paper. Now you can try this with me or you can just watch. So remember, I talked about splitting up the paper into 4 quadrants, right? And if y'all have purchased work from me, or if you've watched me draw or come to my studio, I don't show the map as much, but I do keep all of the lines. There's a focal point, right? So for me, the focal point is her pelvis, is her hips, obviously her glute. It's the space that's coming out to us the most. That's where we're gonna start. If you were someone who was drawing like this, I want you to slide your hand back on the pencil, and if you're drawing upright, we're gonna keep the pencil lifted like this. If you're drawing down, I want you to hold the pencil like this. I'm trying to get you to loosen up here. So we're moving the pencil from where we learned how to write to now drawing a figure. So hold the pencil farther back, or the pen, whatever you're using. Focal point for me is this right hip, this right pelvis. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. And also this is like a really, this is totally behind the scenes, so I don't ever really explain how I draw, so I'm really happy to let y'all see how this actually goes down. So let's start to think about these quadrants. And the right, there you go, Jean-Pierre, let it out. I'm gonna start with some major shapes. The what's kind of hard to see, babe? Oh, the presentation's a little hard to see. Okay, Michael's my cameraman, so he's just gonna make it work. So I'm gonna start, so go ahead and start drawing shapes. Look how far I'm holding the pencil back. Go ahead and start to, and don't be afraid. All of these lines can be erased. I like to keep them. So right now I see this shoulder. Look, I'm just doing circles. I see this hip. There's like an S, a C crescent moon shaped curve going from her glutes all the way up to the crown of her head where her hand goes, okay? Elbow, I'm just mapping her out. Think about angles. The left shoulder is higher than the right shoulder. The right hip is higher than the left hip. The right knee comes towards the right side of the room that she's in. The left knee, her foot is here. It's towards the very bottom. Her other foot is almost perpendicular to this pad of the foot. Her glutes are here. Her hips are here. Press down. Okay. Michael told me to press down. That's a good call. I'm going to switch to a harder number 2B pencil so y'all can see what I'm actually doing. All right. So I'm going to press down a little harder than normal, but I want y'all to still be really light. So here's that crescent moon shape that I was talking about. Right hip, here are her glutes. This is what I like to call lyrical drawing. And this doesn't have to become your style, but what I like about this is it helps you loosen up. I know a lot of us need to be really loose and free during this time of staying inside and changing our routine. So this is going to help you stay loose and free. Be free with your circles. Look how I'm holding my pencil. Look how far away I am. And then there's that beautiful S shape that goes right in towards the separation of her left glute and her right glute. All right? Think about all these little lines. You don't have to get detailed until we start kind of defining some of these shapes. So if y'all know me, y'all know I love ribs. Not beef ribs. I'm talking about human ribs. These are just so beautiful, these shapes. Shoulder blades, if you've ever studied a skeleton, think about where the shoulder blades are going, the trapezius. So I'm not doing anything serious except for drawing these lyrical lines. Okay, from here I have, look, I'm just drawing ovals. Does anybody have any questions while I'm going? I know this looks kind of crazy, but it's gonna pan out. Look, even the feet, and of course all the toes. There's not one single straight line in the human body. Once I've mapped down the figure into my 4 quadrants, once I've mapped down my figure with the negative space, so if you're starting to go into detail, start to think about the negative space. So for instance, if you're having a hard time finding proportion from the top of the right shoulder to the right hip to the right knee, think about the space that it's creating. If you turn your head a little bit, it looks like an upside down lampshade. All right? So we're going to create that upside down lampshade right there. And there is her right arm. That's her pelvic ridge and her right knee. Upside down lampshade. It's all negative space. Let's think about her ribs. Her elbow comes really high, her shoulder here, shoulder blade, ribs. We're starting to add in some detail. And if you're wondering how to capture glutes without making it look like a big booty, then notice the line quality here. So I learned this thing in art school, and this is a funny story, or at least I think it's funny. It could be the glass of wine. But I had a teacher who made me start to draw with angles, and she would make me hold up my pencil and draw with angles. And I think she had it out to get me. I have no idea, but what I did was I drew the figure and then I held up my pencil and added these after lines. And she could totally tell, but it's still, based on how I draw, this process worked. So if that works for you, if you're trying to find the angle, hold your pencil up to the figure and see, wow, the right knee is really a lot higher than the left knee. So we're gonna draw a fine line here. All right? So here's that negative space, that lampshade that I was talking about. Knee, really beautiful shapes here. Right glute, a little space here for the left glute. And here's that other, if you tilt your head, this looks like a mountain range, yeah? There's not a perfect peak, there's not a straight line, but think about the angle. The ribs come out a little bit further. So look, I started in circles. Don't be afraid to come back to that. If you're losing track, if you're kind of freaking out, come back to these maps. These are the blueprint of your figure. That's why the gestural marks are so important, because they're guessing lines. You're trying to place this figure onto a 2D surface. I'm looking at the knee here. The calf comes down a little bit here. So there's that really pretty line for the glute, a little dip for some of her extra skin. Here's that pad of the foot. All right, and now look at this negative space. It's super small and it's super specific. Thank you, Jean-Pierre. I think he agrees. Yeah, he really does agree. So here's that space, her calf with the heel, all of her toes. And now I know some of y'all are intimidated with the toes and the fingers. Trust me, if y'all just consider them as shapes, they're not as intimidating. I love drawing. If y'all ever read the book Frindle in 5th grade is when I read it. I was assigned the task in 2nd grade to draw the cover of the book, which is a boy holding his hand like this with a pencil. And so also y'all might see, I turn my head sometimes to get the exact angle. So I can already tell that I'm kind of messing up here. I'm trying to multitask for y'all. Sometimes it's hard. But so anyways, I had to draw that book cover, and it took me, and if my mom remembers, I had this huge piece of paper that was sprawled out on the floor of our house in Winter Park, Florida, and I drew it over and over and over again until I realized that the fingers and the toes were just shapes. So I'm going to zoom in. The toes here, they're just little shapes. They're just little shapes. They're not toes, they're shapes, right? They can turn into toes, but think about, okay, the big toe comes out further than all these little toes, which if you were to group them in an oval, they look like they're moving upwards in one direction. The pad of the foot here, the heel. And then if y'all see me do these lines, I like drawing these lines because it shows you the movement of the foot. All right. So again, this isn't my best work, but it's just to show you how loose you can be. Okay, so here's this really pretty line of the pelvis going into the spine, to her shoulder. I'm just going back and adding detail now that I've mapped out the whole figure on the paper. So again, resort back to your circles if you're having a hard time. See how that line and these pretty bones, a little line here, right here, right here. There's that really pretty, that rib really jets out far. So don't be afraid to go over with your lines. Jean-Pierre, I don't know what he wants. He just had a very luxurious dinner. All right, so I'm gonna lower this down a little bit so y'all see. I'm gonna come up to the elbow now. Again, I'm going back to those circles. Here's the hand, here's the face. So one thing that I learned in art school was the skull isn't ever a perfect circle, right? So I'm just gonna do a little demo right here. The skull isn't ever a perfect circle. When you're looking at the skull from the side, you have the jaw, it's flat, and then you have this shape, right? So here's our jaw. This is where our nose would be, our eyes would be, our mouth would be, the forehead, and then eventually the nose, the mouth, the chin. But it's not a perfect circle. We have this tilt, this flat plane. So if I'm looking at that flat plane, here is where her skull is, right? Here's that flat plane. There's her jaw. Her eyes are here. So her ponytail, I'm going to give her a bun. So her ponytail can fit right there. Flat plane, there's her jaw. Here's her skull and her neck. All right, elbow here. And let's go ahead and talk about the fingers. So here's that. I'm going to actually tilt my head. And I'm going to draw the basic shape. If you find yourself as an artist, or even as someone who just likes to draw on public transportation or anything like that, if you find yourself doing leaf fingers, I'm going to change your life. All right. And I want you to think about Vienna sausages. I know that's weird. One of my favorite artists is Egon Schiele, and he, I think, is the master of line work. I'm obsessed. Also, I love Matisse. What I love about Egon Schiele is that he taught me how to break the finger up into shapes. So if I'm drawing my own finger, here's a shape, here's a shape, here's a shape, here's a shape, here's a shape. That's my finger, all right? It is just shapes. My fingernail would go there. That's a finger. I know that looks really weird. So let's look at her fingers. Her knuckles here, what angle do her knuckles go to? They kind of go upwards to the left corner. So I'm going to draw a circle for the knuckles. A shape for her index finger, another shape and a shape. Her middle finger almost matches her index finger with a little lift. Her ring finger kind of comes out and dips down shorter than the middle, excuse me. You see a little bit of the pad and the webbing of her finger, and then her pinky. So it's this kind of free hand, and there's no thumb because it's hidden behind her head. Let's zoom back out. Okay, let's talk about ears too. So if we're looking back at this reference photo, if the eyes are here and the nose is here and the upper lip and the lower lip, the ears in any human body that's symmetrical, the ear, the top of the ear rises to the eyebrow and the bottom of the ear rises to the bottom of the nose. So we'll talk later about sacred geometry in the figure and in nature, but so if you're ever having a hard time mapping out where the ear goes, it is as high as the eyebrow and as low as the bottom of the nose. So go ahead and think about that on your own face. And you can, Michael, why don't you pan to me? I know I'm gonna look like crazy, but so the eyebrow and the bottom of the nose, hey, pan exactly. Was that exact? It kind of messed up. But if you can think about it, it pans exactly. This is the same height. So there's some proportion for you if you're having a hard time. Because her face is tilted down, if this were her eyebrow and this were the bottom of her nose, her ear is going to go right here. There's her jaw, her cheekbone. So there's those little details come with studying the body. So I'm going to try to change my pencil to go into a little bit more line work. So here's the fun part. Once you've gotten the figure down, all right, for the most part, this really beautiful pose, go in and add your own line work. So if you're someone who likes to draw the movement of the flesh, maybe you should, we didn't go to this hand. This hand is really important because it's such an interesting placement of the hand. What is it? She's doing like this or something. So the hand is about here, and I'm gonna fit the whole hand in that space that I reserved for it. That's really important. So notice how I told y'all not to hold the pencil here. Whenever I get more detailed, I do hold the pencil just a little bit closer, but I do keep some space. So looks like the thumb, this shape is kind of coming into a triangle, and then it comes. So really messy. Remember, if you're someone who doesn't like to keep all these gestural marks, at the end of this, pick the line that you're keeping and erase everything else. If you're an eraser, an architectural brush is like the best thing. This is a Mandalay, and you can just wipe away the eraser and it holds the integrity of your own drawing. So there's a thumb. There's a little skin there, that webbing in between. A knuckle here, that chunk of skin there with a lift of the finger. So what I love, keep in mind, if you ever want to show fingers lengthened, the finger has the padding like that. So the fingers aren't like this. The fingers have a little bit of a point and then they come back down. The ring looks like there's another shadow here. This beautiful lengthened finger is in multiple sections. There's one section here. Think about it in sections. One section here. It's a little bit longer. I see another finger that kind of dips like this, and then I see the final finger like this. So this is a little messy, but I just want to really highlight the sections. So once I feel like I've mapped the figure, like if this were a commission piece, I wouldn't draw so hard. It's hard to erase really, really dark lines. So I would draw a little bit lighter, but two, I would go back in and I would start to really highlight some of these lines that I favor. So if I like this line, I'm coming up here. What I love about this part is really defining the person through the lines that you see them in. We're all lines. We're not a perfect straight line because we're not perfect, but we all are lines. Every single line matters. The line from the calf to the hamstring matters because it has a curve up. Think about all of the lines. This line to the flesh is straight. So now my hand placement changes on the pencil because I do want to be more defined. There's a little lift, a little skin here, really beautiful model to work with. Here, the knee, think about the shapes of the knee, your own patella. Maybe you feel your own knee and see why maybe this looks flat right here. There's a little calf muscle there, here and here. There's that pad of the foot. This foot isn't my favorite foot I've ever done, but I'm just gonna let it be because I'm not gonna be upset about it. But I just want y'all to see the shapes of the foot. Here's that tibia fibia. You go up back to the spine, this really beautiful motion in the spine. Here, her trapezius, right to that shoulder. That lampshade negative space that we talked about, that fit right here. this hand, that kind of dainty hand, and then the flat plane of her face with her ear. And if you're drawing hairline, it's all shapes. So next to the ear, the hair comes down here. She has a little lift from being pulled back in a ponytail. And maybe I will show the ponytail just because it's what the picture looks like. There. So, and then what I always do before I have a drawing to me as completed and finished, I always take a step back and make sure that, okay, Haley, did you really mess up something? Is something not proportioned? To me, this still feels like it needs to be lifted. This needs to really slope down. This shoulder needs to be here. This elbow is good. I'm okay with this hand. And that's where you might see in my work some of these final connecting lines. Does this hand connect here, that knee? I just love this hip here. The shoulders, the face. And then there you go. And that is gestural drawing of a figure. And I wish I could hear y'all because I know that you probably have questions. But it's not that scary. And if you could see how I drew in the beginning, it's just circles. It's just lyrical circles, it's lines. I wanted you, now take the one that you just drew in the beginning, next to the one that you drew right now, and notice the difference. Were you timid in the beginning? Was your image really small? Was it choppy? Were you holding the pencil like how you learned how to do cursive? When you removed your hand and moved it to the back of the pencil, there's this phenomenon called happenstance, and it's the movement or the dance between you and the model. And it's a way for you to translate a living, breathing human being and move it onto a flat surface. So it requires motion, it requires breathing, it requires getting close and getting far away. And you can't do that and really capture the movement if you're this close to your paper. So the challenge that I have for you is, if you're gonna try this again, to move your hand, to take a step back, and to start with circles. Just start with circles and don't be afraid. Start with circles, drawing a couple angle lines, what shoulder is higher, what hip is higher, what line is at the base, and there is your drawing. Now, so I'm gonna save this video to my IGTV, and I just wanna ask y'all if you have any questions about my process, or why, or how, or who are you again, and what are we doing? So I'm looking at my phone here, or Michael's phone, but does anybody have any questions about this? And it's okay if you don't have them now. Remember, you can always DM me. And you know what I would love to do is, if you practice this figure, it would be so cool to see how different you all draw this figure. So if you want to tag me, Haley Bowen Art, or use the hashtag Haley from Home, I'd love to repost you, just so people can see what it looks like, and how we all look at a figure differently. Now, keep in mind, this isn't the one way to draw, but it is a way for you to draw to totally loosen up, and hopefully I rocked your world. So again, you can DM me, ask me questions. I'll be doing more tutorials like this, and I'll be giving away some original work. So thank y'all so much. Again, I'll be updating my website and my Instagram with tutorials and activities that I'll have. I hope that y'all are staying safe. I hope you're all healthy and well, and I'm really excited. Oh, thank you, Kim, I love you. And I hope that y'all are enjoying these. So I'll keep giving. Love you guys. I'll see you soon.